to drive your career, not just ride along? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm Simone E. Morris, your host and career strategist, here to give you the roadmap. Each week, we're cutting through the noise with strategies, stories, and insights to get you back in control. Your career clarity starts right here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Today, we're diving into the world of impactful professional imagery with a premier headshot photographer, Hector Pachas from Fairfield County. He's not just about capturing a face. He's about unlocking confidence and approachability through personality-driven photos and expert facial expression coaching. I can't wait to hear about that. Plus, we'll get a glimpse into his life beyond the camera. He's a family man, a passionate cook, a gardener, and a budding winemaker. Hector, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Awesome. So, Hector, tell us, did you always want to be a photographer?
No, you know what is funny? I actually, even though I always had a camera laying around the house, I never thought of this to be a profession. My dad used to be in the police, and I remember the first professional camera that I grabbed was one that they used for the forensics. And
Oh,
they gave me the camera. I started using it back in the days with film, but never actually thought that I would be a photographer. I actually, when I moved to the States, I studied IT, I did management. In Peru, I was in telecommunications, so photography had never been in the cards. Only as a hobby when I was doing corporate, but then the calling came right around the time of the pandemic.
so tell us about how the calling came, because I'm always interested. By the way, I have an IT background as well. I don't know if you know this about me, Hector, but my master's degree is in management of technology. So I was down the road with tech stuff, doing SAP projects, doing development, and so did a pivot. But I'm curious about your pivot. Pandemic happens. It's a great time for reflection and to think about life in general. So tell us that story. How did you decide to pick the camera up and make it your profession?
So yeah, the it was really interesting because again, I had been in corporate world. I went the IT and management route, was in this company for a number of years, but then the company ended up closing. So it's like, okay, let's pick the camera and start using it, try it to career. I had been doing the job search in the corporate world, but nothing was panning out. And I didn't really want to go back to that, that same grind of corporate. The IT world, it used to be a world where you get in front of the camera of the computer, you start typing and typing and typing, and you didn't get any feedback from the people.
Mhm.
And as much as I thought of myself as an introvert, I was sort of a fun extrovert, right? I always had that need to be talking with people, interacting. I think that's how we met before. I was following you on LinkedIn, and then we met at an event that you were promoting your book at the Norwalk
Yes.
Library.
Yes.
So when the pandemic hit, I had already been exploring the chance to be a photographer. So everything closed, and I had already started my road into photography, and everything shut down. Everything shut down. So I got the call from the headshot crew. It's like, hey, everybody is out of work. We cannot do anything. Let's put together this event where we'll try to give free headshots for people that lost their job because of the pandemic. So I was part of the team of 3 photographers here for Norwalk, but it was a nationwide effort to get people headshots so that they could look for new jobs while the pandemic was raging. And that was right in the middle of the pandemic. So I led the team here in Norwalk. The Sono Collection offered us the space. We were covering masks, doing the social distancing, and yeah, we gave free headshots for people. And that was the moment where I figured, yeah, headshots. This is what I want to do.
I love that story so much. So, this is a show about careers and advancing in your career. So, tell us briefly why headshots are so important for careers, because you talked about people not having work and how important it was for them to have access to beautiful headshot. So tell us why that's important to you in advancing in your career.
Yeah, so I say there's been an evolution, and I think the pandemic actually pushed that envelope. Um, Now everyone talks about personal branding, online searches, and that. And the first thing that, let's say, an employer is going to be doing is looking you up on Google. They'll look you up on social media, they'll see LinkedIn and see what comes up first. So if you talk to a marketer, it's like, okay, what's your personal branding saying? So you want to take control of that. A number of people say, it's like, okay, what do you think of me? It's like, no, what do you want to see people to think about you, to see when they look you up? So let's say if they look up Simone Morris, the first thing that should be coming up is your photos, your podcast, your LinkedIn. You shouldn't be coming up with some random stuff. So by you taking control of the narrative, you really push the envelope, and that's how you stack up in, let's say, in a job search. If you're looking for a new job, people will see it's like, okay, this person has a photo that looks like him. This looks like a confident person. This is someone that can be on our team.
Mm. So I'm just curious, in your bio, you talked about being an expressions expert. And so listeners, this will also be available on our YouTube channel. So from an expressions standpoint, how do you coach someone to express themselves in a way that's attractive to a hiring manager or somebody who's giving you a promotion?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So when you are looking, so one of the experiences that we have when, let's say, we go to the DMV, right? You go to the DMV or you go to get a passport photo, and
Yep.
they tell you you don't need expression. But if you don't have expressions, you cannot tell anything, right? So let's say you look at the camera and you're like this with nothing,
What does
right?
that say
So
about you and your career?
yeah, so you see that, and so one of the things that when we're looking into the camera, we don't, our brain is sending a signal, our face is not interpreting everything. So let's say with the selfie, right? You still have like a mirror, you can see what your face is doing, but if you're looking into a lens, you don't really have that much of a connection. But as a photographer, as you're talking, you can actively get that feedback. One of the things that people will always tell me is like, oh, I hate how I look in photos. And it's because you have that experience from either the DMB, I don't know, perfect example is a group photo, right? You take a photo with your friends, they take the photo, nobody ever show you how you looked on that photo, and that photo spread online. So that messed up with your head. Whereas if you're actively shooting and I'm showing you, it's like, okay, this is how you look now. We can make changes. And right off the bat, when I show you on the computer, after I given you a couple of tips on how to look into the camera and all that, it's like, whoa, I didn't know I could look this cool. It's like, yes, you can. Everyone can look cool, but if you give yourself the chance to.
Mm. You made me think about LinkedIn because I'm sorry, not LinkedIn, Zoom. Zoom really took off during the pandemic. I was using Zoom before the pandemic, but I noticed the features and functionality really took off post pandemic and or during the pandemic. And I noticed that I keep saying LinkedIn, I mean Zoom. They have this group photo thing that you can do. I don't know if you've tried it, Hector, but it actually lets you look at the picture before you finalize it. And each
Well,
individual person gets their picture so that if you look, you know, not the way you want to look, you can redo the photo and just that person's photo will be redone. So I think it's really clever that you can have a sneak peek at how your brand, one of the assets in your brand
yeah,
looks.
because and it's interesting because right at the pandemic, when the pandemic happened, like there will be the presenters and somebody will do a screenshot, and
Yep.
that's happened to me hundreds of times. Like everyone is looking somewhere else,
Yep.
and that happens in person or happens in on Zoom. Even if you tell them it's like, oh, 3 seconds, look at the camera, and nobody does it.
Oh, this is so fun. So when we talk about brands, Hector, again, the headshot is one piece of your brand. Tell us
Yeah.
about your brand and the different components that make up your brand.
Branding, it's so interesting. It's part of the work that I do. It's very embedded with, let's say, marketing, right? And branding, it's basically how you want people to see you. It's like, okay, so what's the image that you want people to see from you? Um, let's say when you go to a networking event, right? Everyone is like, okay, you have to look polished, you have to know your story and everything. And it's basically that the perception that you want to get people to get from you. It can be your website, your photo. Someone that I spoke earlier. 40-year-old guy, really cool, has a lot of experience, but on social media, he carries only like the college stuff. On LinkedIn, he's got his football days in high school, and that's not the person that he is now. So there is a lot of perception that needs to be changed to where he is now.
Mm.
Everything is it's not just the visuals, but everything that gets put together.
Yeah. And I do think
And
you have to be patient with yourself because I know that my brand has evolved over time and
yeah,
there's iteration of the website. Listeners, I would suggest a biography because you may be doing some speaking and it doesn't have to be outside of the workplace. It could be inside the workplace. And people need an intro to introduce you or a bio to advertise the event. So for me, a bio is a part of your brand, your signature, your photo,
yeah.
your website. I mean, there's so many pieces of it when we think about branding, but the headshot really, is that visual that captures and calls you in.
And it's an ever evolving thing. Like you are never done with it. The same way that, let's say, if you go to, let's say, your school reunion, right? People knew you from things that you did, but as a person, you've grown, you're adding
Yes.
things, you're learning things every day. um, you're going to be changing your mind about some mindset that you had. Your mindset is going to expand. So the same thing with, let's say, headshots, right? Like you're not, something that I always discuss with people is like, yeah, I like my photo from 10 years ago because I had more hair, I was slimmer. But one of the things is that you're not that person anymore.
Mm.
You changed from, I mean, from 2 years ago. We've changed a lot. In the last 4 years, our perception of the world has changed so much, just because of Zoom and the pandemic. So we have to stay up with the times and updated with everything.
Okay, yes. So tell us, Hector, what is your formula for owning your career? So what are the key ingredients that you feel are necessary to own and to be in the driver's seat for your career?
I think it has to be, don't be dormant on things. So let's
Mm.
say if you just got a certification, um, I don't know, photography, right? So you just did a course. You have to be shooting people. You have to get people in front of you. If you are in IT, it's like, yes, you got your master's, but it's not just about getting certification. You have to be active. You have to be learning more things. One of the talks of everyone is talking right now is about AI.
Yep.
So it's like, yes, your AI is not going to replace you, but the kid next door that is 15, 16-year old that is mastering everything, he could replace you just because you think that is not, you're not going to happen. So taking ownership, it has to be about, yes, you know your stuff, but you have to practice it. You have to be very active on the role that you want to have.
So, if I heard you correctly, I heard you say your formula includes mindset, having the right mindset, also being a lifelong learner or education, really
Yeah.
staying on the pulse of what's happening in AI is a perfect example. I took a course at Cornell about AI strategy because again, the more you know, the better you're able to navigate your career. So if you just stay on the outskirts and you're not an adopter, you're going to get left behind. So I love that you brought AI up as well. And also to really promote your brand. You get a degree or you get a certification or you do something. People are not thinking about you. They're busy with their own careers and they don't have time to stay updated with what you're doing. So it's really important to promote your brand.
Yeah, and it's always about voicing, like have a voice for yourself. A number of times
Mhm.
I see people, it's like, oh, I don't need a photo, I don't need this, but it's like, okay, you're passing up on opportunities because you are not being loud enough to promote yourself. And it's everything about promotion and being active.
I love that. And sometimes people are afraid. You talked earlier in the show about being a extrovert or embracing the extrovert part of your personality. And so sometimes people are afraid to really toot their horn or to have a light shine on them to talk about themselves. I've noticed that as a career coach.
And it's really interesting because it's something that I talk a lot with a friend of mine that does personal branding. Both him and I share the same thing, that is like, oh, we don't really talk about our, like, we like to talk about our clients, the people that we help, but we don't talk about our gains or our wins.
Mhm.
And a lot happens to a lot of people that either culturally or we grown that things like, yes, I like someone else to take the credit. I think we have to be advocates for ourselves as much as others.
Mm, mm. Well, tell us about resources that helped you to really double down as a photographer. And that's not your official title, and I love that. So feel free to talk about your brand and how you refer to yourself, premier photographer, et cetera, et cetera. So, what resources helped you to be better or at the top of your game in this highly competitive field?
Yeah, so and it's interesting, when I was just starting, there was like, everything is ready online. You can find so much stuff, but having so much stuff can be a problem because you don't know what's actually good and what can work for you. So for me, it was mentorship. Like what I mentioned earlier, that the group that started these free headshots for people that lost their job, it was a headshot group. This effort was led by this team of photographers. So the first, after I did this volunteering with them, is like, okay, I need to train with Peter. And it's that chance for us to find the right mentors. When you can find so many online resources, but until you actually work with someone one-on-one, you will see the change. So it can be so many career paths that you can have. You can be a photographer, you can be an IT specialist, so many things. It has to be working with someone one-on-one, finding the right type of person, the mentor, to really push the envelope.
Mm. Yeah, I receive what you're saying, and in some way feels like a bit of coaching as well, because sometimes mentors can be not as involved as a coach can be. So
Yes.
a coach really works with you to see that result. Not that a mentor doesn't, but a mentor can mean different things. And I also think about sponsorship, because I don't know if Peter is dropping your names in rooms or putting you up for opportunities, but that's somebody who sponsors you, who's more invested and wants to see you get ahead in your career as well. So that would be someone to also have on your career team.
Yeah, and also surround yourself with people that have loftier goals than you. When
Mm.
people to really make you strive for something better. It can be either for community, it can be for monetary goals, for growth, but having the right circle, is wonderful. Like for me, I go to networking events and I run into photographer colleagues and people that come to us. It's like, aren't you guys competitors? It's like, no, there's people that will find me or find him better than each other, and it's just because of the connection that we made. I think there is such a big market for everyone that the competition is just you. Like for me, my biggest competitor would be me yesterday, because today I'm supposed to be better than I was before.
I love that so much. I love that. You are your biggest competitor. And from yesterday, I love that, Hector. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Now, you use LinkedIn quite a bit. Tell us
Yeah.
how you decided to embrace that platform to really talk about your services, talk about you and how your brand is evolving, because some people are afraid of putting themselves out there on the platform. But it's a very valuable platform, I
Oh
believe.
yeah. No, and it's really interesting because there are so many social media platforms out there. Um, LinkedIn, I think I created an account 14, 15 years ago. And back then it was a platform that was just for job search. But now it's evolved in such a big way that it's not just to talk about. It's like, okay, I'm looking for a job, but you can broadcast everything that you're doing. It's not just like a keeping tabs on resume, but it helps you grow that brand. It will help you tell people, it's like, okay, this is what I'm about. This is what I can serve you. And it's good. Like, it really depends, like depending on what you're doing, you have to know the audience that you're tailoring to. In my case, I'm tailoring to professionals. If I'm using Instagram, I'm probably tailoring to artists, actors, and actresses. The tone is going to be different. And
Mhm.
it's really interesting because what you mentioned, that people are afraid of, let's say, talking on LinkedIn. And I think it was um, one of the top heads of LinkedIn that had this video a couple of months ago. And it's like, okay, the platform has evolved, but how do we want to uh, take LinkedIn and not turn it into, let's say, Microsoft or Facebook, where everyone was sharing cat videos, right? So think of think of LinkedIn as, let's say, the water cooler. When you get to the office on, let's say, February, the day after the Super Bowl, you're not going to be talking about your job or what everything is holding you, right? The first thing that you're going to be talking with your friends is like, hey, did you watch the game? Did you watch this thing? So LinkedIn has, or let me take a step back. When you get back into the office, or you're talking to your coworkers, right? You pick and choose what you want to share with them. So you could be talking about your families, you could be talking about the games and that. So the same happens on LinkedIn. You could be 100% just talk about work, but then that reads like a resume.
Mm.
When you want to expand your personal brand, and you want to get people to know you, it's like, okay, this is someone that now cares about work, cares about family and that. So if you're afraid of LinkedIn, just take like baby steps and share here and there. Like if you look at my profile, when you connect, it's like I talk about photography, I talk about sarcasm. I try not to get into politics, but it's you really choose how much you want to share with people, and you are free to talk about anything really.
Yeah, you talk about family too. I enjoy seeing and
Yeah.
tie it to your brand. I think it's very clever. In fact, recently, I believe I saw you post that someone found you through AI. Did you post that?
Yes, I had a conversation 2 days ago with this prospective client, and usually I have people that find me through LinkedIn. They find me through a friend that I photograph. Sometimes it's a forum that they saw my name, so they call me. And so this gentleman is so in the conversation we're having fun, we're laughing. It's like, hey, so how did you find me? It's like, oh, I found you through ChatGPT. I've been talking to it for the last couple of weeks, and he did a quick search, and that's how my name popped up.
Wow, that is awesome. I found that fascinating. I said to myself, I've got to do the right prompt and see what comes up because I think that's very interesting because I see LinkedIn also as a search engine
Yeah.
or as a news channel because on the right hand side when you go in, top news is over there. So even if I did not watch television, there's news that I gain from being on the platform. So it is a very valuable resource that is good for your career. Let me
Yeah,
say that. Yeah.
it is really good. And you can really get a pulse into everything that can be for like an industry or different things.
What do you think about authenticity? How have you been able to be your authentic self and I don't know if you face challenges around exclusion, but if that's the case, how do you embrace your authentic self and allow that to be part of your brand and how you show up?
That's very interesting. I don't think I've experienced exclusion like particularly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in different aspects of life, for sure. Um, but professionally, I don't think I've seen that problem. When I've connected with clients, I've had clients that, let's say, they followed me on LinkedIn. It's like, oh, we actually liked what you talk about, and when we got into the call, we that really reaffirmed the tone. So that goes into, let's say prospective employers will look for you. So if you have I don't know, some sort of online presence, and you say ABC, and then when they talk to you, or you go on an interview, you repeat the same tone. It's like, okay, this is a person that knows what they are talking about. So you create already an expectation about yourself, and everything is tied into your brand.
Okay, awesome. Any parting words? The time goes by so quickly, and I enjoyed talking to you so much and getting to know more about you and your brand. Any parting words of wisdom for people wanting to really own their careers, Hector?
Yeah, so you mentioned authenticity, right? That's key. People want to know who you are, what you're about. You just have to show it. A couple of weeks ago, I did the first. It was for the first time that I was doing public speaking, and it terrified me. But once I was on the stage, I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. It's doable. So the same thing with. That I tell people, it's like, don't be afraid to show your face. After the pandemic, people know how you look. One of my clients said, it's like, oh, if you are not using an updated photo, you're catfishing people.
Mm,
So is that like you, like being yourself, like you're already outside. People know how you look. People talk to you. So it's just about showing something current.
okay. Well, how can our listeners stay connected with you or get in contact with you if they'd like to do so?
Yeah, so you can look me up on LinkedIn, Hector Pachas. The same thing for Instagram, or just do a Google, Hector Pachas, and you can find me or shoot me an email, hector@hectorpachas.com.
Awesome. Well, Hector, thanks so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. That's it for today's empowering episode. I'm Simone E. Morris, and I want you to remember that you are indeed the architect of your career. Share this episode if it sparked something in you. Subscribe wherever you listen, and find more resources at SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. Keep practicing career ownership, and I'll be right here with you next week for more transformation.